We also quoted this before, and we're going to give the same answer. Hametame v'amedame v'amenasech. He makes impure, or he mixes truma, which is the gift to the Kohen, with mundane food. Or menasech, he pours wine for avodah zarah b'shoigeg. By mistake, he's pater. He's exempt, but b'mezid, we put a fine on him, and he's chayiv to pay for it. Why is he chayiv to pay? It's a Yisrael that's doing this. We should say that it doesn't become forbidden, because the Yisrael can't make something forbidden, according to these three. We answer Hachanami bi Yisrael Mumar. See, it's talking about a Yisrael that's known to do this, a transgressor. Amle Ravacha breder Rav Ravashi. Ravacha, the son of Rav, asked Ravashi, Hisrubai. Let's say he gets warned. Akiba lolav hasra. And the person says, I'm doing it anyway. What's the halacha? Amrlei. He responds, Hitter atzme lemisa kamret. You're talking about someone that allows himself to be put to death. It says, Ein lecha mumar gadol misa. This is the biggest mumar. This is the real transgressor. This is the one that makes it forbidden. Right. Okay. Let's do the next Mishnah. What do we have here so far? What we come out with is that Machlekes, the Rambam and the Rosh, if we're going to say there's a partnership, a Jewish partner can make his partner's items forbidden. According to the Rambam, yes. According to the Rosh, no. Unless we know he's a transgressor. Okay. The Mishnah says, Ein sheichten. You can't shecht. Leila Teichiyamim, not into the oceans, because a person will say, if he takes his animal over to the beach, over to the ocean, and he slaughters there, or to the bay, he'll say that he's slaughtering it to the god of the ocean, to the angel of the ocean. Leila Teich Naris, and not into the rivers. Leila Teich Kalim, not into vessels, because he's going to say that he's receiving the blood to sprinkle it. But a person can slaughter it into a little puddle of water. Uga sounds like a cookie, but it probably means a circle of water, like a little ring of water. Rashi mentions. Ubasfina, however, if you're on a boat, I'm sorry, Uga Shamayim Ubasfina, if you're on a boat, then al gabi kalim, then you can slaughter on top of vessels. And even though the water is going to run into the sea, that's not a concern, because the reason what you're doing is you don't want the boat to get dirty, and you don't want to slaughter into the sea. So you're slaughtering on the vessel, over the vessels, and that would be fine. Over there, it's obvious that it's not for the idol to receive the blood. Ein sheichten leguma kalikar. You can't slaughter into a hole, into a hole in the ground. Then the Mishnah says, but you can make a hole in the house and allow the blood to fall into it. This sounds like a bad teacher that would say this. No one's allowed to, and then immediately you make an exception.
Are they going to talk about mountains also? Because I thought before it was the god of the mountains, the god of the sea.
Yeah.
Or slaughter to a mountain, sorry.
We mentioned that in the last Mishnah, and now we're already past the mountains. That was the last Mishnah. We mentioned that it was the god of the mountain, the angel of the mountain, Gada the Har, right? Gada the Har. So here, what happened is the Gemara is going to ask, how could you say that you're never allowed to slaughter into a hole, and then immediately say when in the house you can?
Okay, Rashi answers.
Yeah, Rashi says the Gemara is going to ask.
So that was for the sake of the mountain. This is I'm talking about on top of the mountain.
Right. No, that we don't have that.
Over here, its intention is not for avodah zarah.
Right. This is just because it looks like it's for avodah zarah.
So when you do it in your house, you're not worried about it. You're seeing it.
Yeah, very good.
In the Bais Hamikdash, we also had where the blood flowed into those specific holes on the corners or wherever it was. So obviously, you can let blood flow in the kosher.
Yeah, because in the temple,
Nobody has any suspicion.
you're slaughtering it to perform a service of this sacrificial ceremony. We're concerned, if you're not doing it in the temple, that you're doing it for an idol, that same ceremony. So that's why you can't slaughter in the same way outside the temple that you would in the temple. So you think maybe he belongs to the one across the street, you know, that...
Vasuli Mikdaf Shachanti Pesocha. You know, it's the guy's house. He has this little.
Yeah, but it's problematic.
In the Bais Hamikdash, they did. I'm not going to go outside. Chas v'shalom, some will think I'm not. But I'm doing a kosher shechita. I should be able to.
No, we don't do that.
Make up a case
We don't do that. It has to be only in the temple.
I don't go to a butcher shop anyway.
The Gemara says, the Mishnah says, "B'shuk yasakim," but you can't do this in the market to make a hole. Why? Shlo yichake esat tzedukim. You shouldn't strengthen. You shouldn't strengthen the tzedukim. I wonder if that's the original Mishnah. Was it originally tzedukim, or was there another word in there?
It says minin.
In the Steinsaltz it says minin?
Yeah, text originally read
Okay. Okay. It's so interesting because minin usually is the early Christians. That's usually what it means.
Wow.
But were the early Christians actually doing sacrifices like this? That's very interesting. It was probably very confusing, the early Christians, how idolatrous they were, you know, okay. Naftali pointed out that anything that's marasayan in the house, we just allowed it. Even though in the marketplace it's marasayan, but in the house we allowed it. Now Tosfos mentions a statement from Rav that anything that's marasayan, afilu b'chadrei chadarim, even in the room, inside a room, it's still forbidden. So why over here are you allowed to do it in the house? And the answer is, Tosfos gives, is that because when you're doing it in the house, it's not that you're not doing the same act. Because when you're doing it in the marketplace, it looks like there's a hole in the ground. It looks like you're doing it to collect the blood or for whatever reason. But that looks like idolatrous practice. But when you're doing it in the house and you're doing it into a hole, so that looks like you're just trying to keep the house clean.
Knows that, yeah. In the shuk, you don't have to keep it clean.
Right. Okay. The Gemara says, "Ein sheichten loy letoich." You can't slaughter into those things. The Gemara asks, "What's the difference that into the seas you can't?" He says that people will say that you're slaughtering to the angel of the sea. Into a puddle of water also you can't slaughter. Why? Because people will say that you're slaughtering to your shadow, and that was some sort of idol. I don't know the history of this, but the shadow.
It says here very interesting. It says there were those who believed in two deities, one that created matter and one that created form. Slaughtering over reflection can be construed as worship to the god of form.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Wow. You see, the Art Scroll won't quote a encyclopedia of religion or something like which one it is, but you may be able to get that from the Steinsaltz. Does he say anything about form, about the shadow, or?
It says reflection. It says bavua. Linguists maintain that bavua is a variant form of the biblical term bavat ayin, which means the pupil of the eye and a child. Similarly, the Hebrew word ishon means either pupil of the eye or a small man, ish. Bavua is similar to the Arabic word bubu, which with both of these meanings has parallels to other languages. The Latin pupa, which means little girl, pupilla, which means little orphan girl or pupil of the eye. The term bavua is used here to refer to the reflection of a figure of one's eye. And then became used more generally to refer to any reflection of an image, for instance, in water or in a mirror.
But they don't tell me the which religion it was that believed that. Okay. So the Gemara answers, "Amarava ba'kurim shana." We're talking about that it's a dark. The water is darkened. It's not clear water, so you don't really see a murky water. Okay. Next piece, Ein Sheichtan Leguma. You can't slaughter into a little groove in the ground. Well, Amrit Ein Sheichtan Leguma Klal. Oh, there was a v'chula there, etc. Because in the etc. it said, but in the house you're allowed to do it. So the Gemara asks, but the Mishnah said Ein Sheichtan Leguma Klal, that you're never allowed to do it. Amar Rabbi says Reisha Beguma Shebeshuk. When it said never, it was referring to the marketplace. Amalei Rava says Vamidaktani Seifa Beshuk LeYasikain. It says in the end of the Mishnah, but you shouldn't do this in the market. Mechlal Dereisha Labeshuk Askinan. That means that in the beginning, it's not talking about the shuk. You had to mention that in the end. Elamar Rava, rather Rava says Hachi Karma. This is what it means. He has a new pshat, not like Abaya. Ein Sheichtan Leguma Kalikar. You're not allowed to slaughter into a little groove in the ground. But if someone wants to clean his courtyard, how should he do this? You make a place, an area outside the pit. Over there you shech. And you let it flow from outside into it. But you can't even do this in the market. Or you probably have a minim. So that you shouldn't strengthen the tzeduk. That means that you're never allowed to do it into the groove, but you're allowed to do it out of the groove and let it flow in. Tanya Kavasei de Rava, bring a raya to Rava. Hoya mahalach besvina. Someone is going on a boat, vein lemakam besvina lishchet, and there's nowhere to slaughter. Maitzi yadichutz lesvina v'sheichet. You can stick your hand out and slaughter off the boat. However, v'dam sheises v'yored al doifane asvina. You're allowed to let the blood flow along the wall of the boat. But you're not allowed to slaughter into a groove. But if you want to keep your courtyard clean, how should you do it? You make an area outside the groove and you slaughter there. And you let the blood flow from outside into the groove. But you shouldn't do this in the market. As it says, don't go in their way. Don't go in their ways. Now, how does that pasuk? I guess you have to separate yourself from their ways. And if you do it in the marketplace, so tzarich bedika achrav, we have to check after him to make sure that maybe he's actually a min, he's a heretic, and you won't be able to eat his bread and drink his wine. Okay.
Here it says this pasuk of chayf. You shouldn't follow their ways. It refers back to the original thing where we said yechaka es haminim. You shouldn't strengthen or emulate Goyim. So it's because of the union of Rachik. You shouldn't follow their statutes. Okay, excellent. Mitzvah Shem, we'll finish this tomorrow, and also we start Eily Trefus. If anyone has the book. You have the book, the Trefus book. That begins tomorrow. We need the doctor here. It's all the different parts of the animal. It's very unique. It's the only place in Shas where you have like such so extensive discussion of the anatomy of the animal.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you have the picture, understand.